Yo, I'm really psyched about this. Ciao y'all. So what is The Artist's Way? The Artist's Way is basically a creativity course created by Julia Cameron, outlines different weekly activities and methods to help blocked artists get creatively unblocked. So the back of the book, which is generally a pretty decent metric for telling you what the book is about, says that The Artist's Way is a seminal book on the subject of creativity. An international bestseller, it's an invaluable guide to living the artist's life. Perhaps even more vital in today's cultural climate than when it was first published a decade ago, it is a powerfully provocative and inspiring work. So I have this version. I think that there's like a newer version that you can read. It probably has like updated comments from the author, considering this is, I think, written in like the 90s. So we all know that 1990 was 10 years ago, but that does make this book about 20 years old. To me, the book feels like just an outlined process for discovering your inner creative and kind of freeing them. It looks like, from just kind of glancing through the course and watching other videos about it, hearing other people talk about their experience, it seems like the course attacks this issue of being creatively blocked from all sides, including spirituality, healing childhood trauma, especially trauma around things that have to do with creativity, and then also, of course, learning to take inspiration from the mundane and so on. It looks like the goal of this course is just kind of to help the artist make it to the other side with a heightened sense of self and a deeper relationship with their creativity. The Artist's Way is composed of 12 chapters, and each chapter has a specific focus relating to rediscovering your creativity, such as recovering a sense of safety, recovering a sense of possibility, and recovering a sense of autonomy. In this book, you do one chapter per week, and every chapter has a reading on that week's topic, and then also accompanying activities that go with the module. So you're supposed to complete, I think, about half of them is the goal that Ms. Cameron sets out. There are two major tools of this course that you do every single week, in addition to those activities I was talking about, the first being the morning pages. This is 3 pages of stream of consciousness writing that you do every day upon waking. It's a judgment-free zone, and you don't have to write anything good or specific, so you're really released from all the pressure of creating something good or creating something worthwhile, worth sharing. They're not meant to be shared, they're not meant to be read by anyone. Actually, for the first few weeks of the course, Ms. Cameron is very specific that even you should not read your own writing. So we're really not focused on the quality of the writing, really just getting something onto the page. And the author specifies that you can even just write, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, for 3 pages until you get to the end of the 3 pages. The second tool that you have in this course is called the Artist's Date. The idea of this tool is that you take yourself out on a solo expedition each week and you go on a date with your inner artist. You can do basically anything that excites or interests you, and there are very few rules except for the fact that you must go alone. The date is for you and your artist, and Ms. Cameron is very specific that taggers-alongers are not welcome. In the past, I have actually considered doing this course, and I think it's funny that actually a lot of people I've heard talk about this course discuss the same phenomena of it was sitting on my bookshelf for a long time before I actually decided to open it, which is exactly the case with me. And I was interested in doing this course, but the thing that really made me not do it was the Artist's Date. So this commitment of taking yourself on one artist's date every week seemed really overwhelming and really difficult, and so that's actually what kept me from doing it, but more on that later. Artists such as Alicia Keys, Kerry Washington, and Elizabeth Gilbert all swear by the incredible power of this course, and so I feel like it's time for me to give it a try. Okay, so why the heck am I doing this? I've just been feeling a lot less creative than I do usually. I'm stressed for no apparent reason, can't really figure out what it is, and I'm just feeling very artistically frustrated and unfulfilled. As a result, my mood is lower, I'm faster to snap at myself, not really at other people, but at myself. I'm feeling very sluggish, and just all of this is coming, I believe, from being creatively unfulfilled. It is no surprise that as a musician, music and art occupy the majority of my mental real estate, and when I am not properly engaging with my art form, I turn into the stereotypical troubled artist, which is not a cute look for me. Instead of throwing myself down a rabbit hole of absolute creative self-destruction and letting my inner landscape implode entirely, I am rebuilding my creativity and building a relationship with my inner artist. Frankly, I have tried the other option. It's grim and it doesn't really get me anywhere worth going, so we're giving this a try instead. The book begins with a chapter titled Spiritual Electricity, the Basic Principles, and in this chapter there was a quote that absolutely hit me like a truck, so I decided I would like to share that, and it was, "Creative in spasms. Creative as an act of will and ego. creative on behalf of others? Creative, yes, but in spurts, like blood from a severed carotid artery. A decade of writing, and all I knew was how to make these headlong dashes and hurl myself against all odds at the wall of whatever I was writing. If creativity was spiritual in any sense, it was only in its resemblance to a crucifixion. I fell upon the thorns of prose. I bled. Finally, somebody who gets it. Sometimes when I make art, it is a serendipitous experience. This happens when my inner artist is not tied up, gagged, and stuffed in a dark soundproof coat closet somewhere in the back of my mind. Recently though, my inner artist has been giving more of Angelotti from Tosca and less of Mary Tyler Moore in the like final montage where she's like throwing her hat in the street and she's like, "You're gonna make it after all." And that is where we are trying to get, people. Julia Cameron also talks about this amazing concept of replenishing the well. So basically she outlines this analogy that creativity is like drawing from a well, and every time you make a project, you work on an art piece, or you just do some creative endeavor, you're basically drawing from the well, which is fantastic. That's what a well is there for. It's all well and good. But this becomes an issue when we're not replenishing the well. So if there's nothing giving the well more water, eventually we will hit the bottom and we will be entirely creatively tapped. And I think that you and I have probably both been in this exact situation. And I feel like, obviously, like duh, we've been in this situation. I'm sorry, I went through 4.5 years of school in a pandemic where I was just like constantly like pouring out parts of myself into work and projects, and I expected that I could take terrible care of myself, not sleep, not like replenish my creative well, and everything was gonna be fine and I could just sustain that throughout the rest of my life. And this is where the artist's date comes in. We are refilling the creative well every week with dates and outings with our inner creative. Like any good hero's journey, I started this before and I failed miserably. So during the pandemic, I got really into Elizabeth Gilbert, and I found and listened to every podcast she'd ever been on, all of her interviews. She has a lot of like talk style shows that she did during the pandemic with other artists. And one episode was with Julia Cameron, and I fell in love instantly. The ideas that this woman was they were just spewing out of her were resonating with me so deeply, and I felt like finally somebody who really understands the struggle. After watching the interview, I thought, oh, what the heck? So I went online and I bought a used copy of The Artist's Way. I think it was $4.99, and it came to my house. I opened it, I read the first part, I was like, ah, yes, wonderful. And then I basically gave up after week 1. So yeah, I really didn't go on any of the artist's dates. That's the thing that kept me from continuing on in the course. And granted, we could probably blame this on the pandemic, but leaving the house and going somewhere is not actually a requirement for the artist's date. So yeah, it's just kind of my fault, isn't it? An exceedingly brief history of creativity. So back in Grecian times, genius was something that you were considered to have and not considered to be. And I really love this distinction. Genius was kind of like a god or like a little muse that came down and worked with artists and visited them. If your work was incredible, everybody knew that it wasn't really all you're doing. And while this might seem like a scam to you, to me that sounds pretty sick, because on the other side of the coin, what happens is if your work is absolute hot garbage, everybody also understands that that's not entirely on you, because the just mutual cultural understanding is that you're creative, your genius didn't show up that day and do their part, so you're not entirely to blame. As a creative and just like a frustrated artist, I cannot express the absolute shame and guilt and frustration that I have felt in the past when being blocked. And sometimes it's a matter of I'm doing everything I know how to do, I'm doing my absolute best, and I still just can't seem to make work that I feel proud of and that I feel is at the standard that I expect and set for myself. And that's really upsetting and difficult. All right, here are the rules. So I, as a somehow hot mess type A girly, love a set of rules. You can just ask my goals board. Basically, I love to have a plan, I love to have an outline, I love to have a map of where I'm gonna go and how I'm gonna get there, and a very well structured itinerary. So why should this be any different? So here are my rules. Number 1, morning pages every day, no matter what. This shouldn't be terribly difficult because I'm already doing that. Then we have plan the artist's date so that it actually happens. I'm doing a thing recently where Saturdays are my day off. Previously I didn't have a day off and it was a terrible idea and I don't recommend that to anyone. So I'm thinking that Saturday is going to be a really solid day to get my artist's date in. This is week 1, but I actually already did my artist's date for this week on the Saturday, which was kind of like the start of the week. So I think that that is a really solid idea. Now we have, so the budget for my artist's date, I am setting myself a budget of $10 per week. But you know, I can go over on one just as long as the math kind of works out in the end of the month. Next rule is to be nice to myself and not absolutely talk trash about myself while I'm doing my practice sessions. This is an issue I really had. We'll talk about that in a moment. And then the other thing is practice every single day. So my primary instrument is voice, so singing every single day, and then my secondary instrument is piano, so also doing that every day. And again, like I stated, not talking absolute garbage, trash, hot dumpster fire about myself while I'm doing it. And then finally, to do at least 2 of the activities that accompany every module. That does not include the morning pages and the artist's date. What have I gained from this so far? So I have really come to realize how much I absolutely bully myself. So yeah, I'm not very nice to myself, and then I realized, like, why would I want to show up and practice and do my best work when I constantly have someone telling me how terrible I am the whole time I'm there? Probably not gonna show up to practice if I just relentlessly get bullied every time I do. And that's exactly what's been happening, so hence the rule of not bullying myself. Yeah, this opening chapter just really called to my attention the severity of my negative self-talk. So I'm trying to combat that by just engaging in some good old-fashioned positive self-talk, and then also making sure that I have, in addition to a mindset that's conducive to creating, a space that's really great for creating. So things that are just like clean, organized, and a general good vibe. But yeah, being my biggest bully is definitely making my creative block a lot worse. So I need to just like chill out and not be absolutely terrible to myself, which is a foreign concept, but we'll work on it. And then my goals in doing this, because you know, this is making a musician, so we have to have a goal, is to just stop bullying my inner creative. I really have this poor inner creative like tied up in the back of the bus, and I'm like taking his lunch money. Like, it's terrible. And just get back to making art that makes me feel happy and fulfilled, and just try a bunch of new stuff that's really like fun and exciting. If you find that that is a journey that you're interested in following, feel free to subscribe to the channel and watch me get my inner artist back to my best little Mary Tyler Moore self. All right, that's all for me. Bye.